unexpected. Hello, fellow chatters. Well, here we are, 1 p.m. on a Wednesday, first Wednesday of February. There was recently Frank Sanchez. It was recently explained to me that February is what is known as a called complete month, in that the first begins on a Monday. First day of February began on a Monday, and the last day of February. Argentina? What? Frank, that's amazing. Well, thank you for coming all this way on the interwebs. I hope you're well. It's lovely to see you. I really appreciate you being here. Camera's kind of fun. I haven't held a stream. Hey Presto, hey. I haven't held a stream for a couple of weeks because of COVID. No, something happened. Forget what happened. Oh yeah. I got busy. But I'm back, baby. New time, same nonsense. So the last few times we got together, CGS Spectrum is now live, streaming, just chatting. Is that what we're doing? Just chatting? You know what's weird about this camera? I can see myself in this camera. It's reversed. So I can really, you ever like draw? This is a new time. JD Smith, digital artist. Good morning, Sarah. Good to see you. You ever draw something and then flip it so you see it the other side and you can see like where all the mistakes are? That's kind of how my face is. When I see it flipped, I can see where all the mistakes are. Although I would notice all the mistakes before. But anyway, this will be the day and time that I'll be streaming, I think. Does this work for you? Is this an awkward time? I don't know. Hey Luis. I don't know. I don't know what the optimum time to be streaming is. I could do because I'm in California, so I'm on Pacific Standard Time. I could do evenings. Like right now it's 1 p.m. in the afternoon. I don't know if that's a good time or not. I don't know. I'm just trying things on for size. But yes, as far as I know, this will be us going forward. Hey, you want to see something cool? Here's something cool. Cool is that? Hey, Lydia. Here, can I just say, I absolutely love it when you guys join the stream and you say hello. Otherwise, it feels like I'm all alone in here talking about animation, which I do anyhow. I talk about animation so much that when I'm actually animating, people say to me, who are you talking to? Anyway, so over the last few weeks, we've covered a lot of topics. We've done some, we talked about the difference between pose to pose and straight ahead. I think we did some creature stuff. We did a bit of facial stuff, I think. Didn't we? Last week we talked about, it was more of a philosophical conversation. We talked about how to navigate through working in the industry. Yeah. Somebody was asking somebody was just asking me. Reminded me of a story that you've probably heard about, working on a small film. Dr. Doodle. Some of the artists that team were like kind of snide about it, like they felt that they were good working on such crappy movies. Movies. I mean, they're amazing, but they're also dumb. I mean, it's a movie. Who cares? Anyway, years later, when I was working at a larger film, a bigger studio, one of those animators reached out to me and said, how did you do that? How did you do how did you get that job? And I said, because I don't see the difference between a small movie and a big movie. It's the same job. I mean, regardless, there are no small films, only small animators. I'm 5'7", so one of those small animators. So anyway, I was so we've covered all manners of things as we go through animation, and I started working on some, we've done walk cycles, and we've done like, walk to a run, that kind of thing. And then I just recently did a run across the screen animation. That stuff's really hard, having your character run across the screen. And it turned out okay. And now I started doing I thought I'd do like something a bit more body mechanic-y, like a parkour type of animation. So I grabbed some reference and I started blocking this thing out. And I just wanted to go through it with you guys and show you like what my process is for blocking these things out. And then we can talk about some technical advantages and disadvantages to using hey Audrey, to using IK hands and all that kind of, yeah. So the first thing I have here is my reference, and it's pretty, there's nothing too crazy about it. I wanted to keep it fairly simple. I want to keep it within like about 200 frames. 200 frames seems to be sort of the sweet spot for animation assignments. It's actually kind of long. I would prefer to keep it under 200 frames, but I don't like to go over 200 frames because it just, there's the burnout gets high. And Mark the Goat, hey Victor, we tend not to be able to polish it. So anytime I've animated, and this is personal animation, obviously, this isn't like, job-based stuff. Somebody hands me 3,500 frames on the job, hell, I'll do it, get paid for it. But on my own, I get burnt out if I go too long. And so I find that I get burnt out before I get a chance to polish it. And what I notice with a lot of reels from young, or up and coming, I should say, because we're not all young, but up and coming animators, is their blocking looks pretty good. Their ideas are always quite good, but the polish is just not there. They're just not polishing. And I sort of consider polishing like, it's almost like a completely different process. Well, I mean, it is a completely different process, but it's almost like a separate thing. Like, I mean, so much so that in the early days of traditional animation, you had your keyframe animators that would like draw all your keyframe poses. Then you had the in-between who would take those chicken scratches for the most part, because the keyframe animators would like just, it was they drew very quickly, they drew very broadly, they wanted to get looking for getting like really, really dynamic poses, and so they didn't draw carefully, or you don't draw as dynamically to. So they wanted to get these super dynamic poses, and so they would draw these what were called animation roughs. And if you've ever looked up animation roughs, look it up now. I'm going to share it with you. And you'll see that they're very, very rough. And then the in-betweeners were kind of more careful. If they had a character throwing a ball A to B, they'd go in, they'd in-between it. The keyframe animator would timing chart tell the animator where the in-betweener, where the in-betweens go, but that animator wouldn't draw them. Then the in-between also draw over top of the keyframe animators, get the characters or whatever it is on model. Keyframe animator isn't really. So, and then from there, it would go to a cleanup artist. Yeah. So polish is a whole, in the old days, polish was like, it was actually two separate departments. It wasn't even the same. Part of the same global process, but not part of the, it was two different departments. I really like blocking out quickly, and I put it in, get a good feedback from it. Good, keep going, nice job, all that kind of stuff, and then I have to start in between. So I asked, but did he get me an in-betweener? No. So anyways, by keeping the scope of your project reasonably short, you can get to the polishing phase earlier, and it's a really important phase that often gets neglected and overlooked, and it leads a lot of young animators or new animators to talk to me about it and say, I know my animation isn't perfect, it isn't polished, but I don't know what to do next. Oh, that's tough. The answer is just keep going, track all your art, don't settle for anything. But anyway, let me show you what I got going on here. So let's talk about blocking out our animation first, because a lot of times I see animators with really good reference, and I say, yeah, that's great reference. And then they block out their animation and they show it to me, and it looks like either they don't really know how to interpret the reference, or they just didn't refer to it at all. And refer is actually in the word reference. Refer, no. But anyway, and so I'd look at at their blocking poses compared to the reference, and I would say, what happened? I don't know, it looks fine. And so then reference. Man, I'm drinking a lot of coffee today, you guys. Hold on, hang on. So here's what I do, or here's how I interpret my reference. So we're starting at frame 1, and I start with the contact pose, and I trimmed my reference so I would start at the contact pose. This reference was a little bit longer in the beginning and a little bit longer in the end, but I trimmed it to 200 frames. Then I started with the contact. My next pose is going to be my character's lowest pose in this run-up. That's 4 frames in. My next pose is going to be this pose. It's a contact pose of the right foot. Right? I use contact poses as my key poses because I need to know where the feet are, because that's going to tell me where the rest of the body is going to need to know. My next pose is going to be the very first pose, or the very first frame, sorry, or pose. Affirmation. Hey, Solar Tiscon, welcome. This is the first pose where the hands come into contact with the platform. It also happens to be the last frame before the feet are both off the ground. You can see he's just on his tippy toes there. So that is like a what do they call it? Serendipitous that I have both of those poses together, because those are both very, very important poses. My next pose is going to be the midway point from him leaping over this obstacle. It's actually the last frame before hey Simon, woo! It's the last frame before his hands leave the structure. So that's an important one. Next is the contact pose of the foot on the next part of the structure. Now there's a whole lot of poses in between these two, right? I'm not worrying about that yet. I just want to block this out first. I know that I'm going to need this pose like up here where he's like right in between the two, and I'm going to have an arc and all that kind of stuff, but I don't care about that yet. I want to get this pose. And in doing this as well, I'm looking for like any opportunity for overlapping action. So you can see like I'm bending the torso, and I'm really focusing on like getting that torso to do like a weed shape, or sorry, posing C shapes if I can. And I don't know for sure if this is going to work, but I'm working on it. And I'm also going up and looking at this, at my trajectory, and making sure that I'm not going way sideways. You know, I got to look at it from the top. I'm looking at it from all different angles. So now I have this contact of the front foot. He's a bit more here. Yeah, I want to lean him back a bit more. That's a better line of action. I mean, reference is just reference, you know, like I don't want it to be exact necessarily. If I wanted to just do it live action, I would have just done it live action. So I'm not really looking to make it exact. I'm using it, like I said, as my next. So this is the last pose before his back foot comes off this structure. The first it's pose where the left foot first touches the next structure. That's another pose. The next one is where he's grabbed on. First pose where his hands meet the top of this. Go back a frame. Hands are still off. So it's the first pose where his hands come into contact with the structure. Next. I didn't shoot my own reference, J.D. Smith, on account of I want to live. We had a choice. Either I shoot the reference or I teach the class. I can't do both. Next pose is my lowest pose. It's all crunched up here. This is kind of a fun pose. This foot here has made contact as well and is supporting some of the weight. Next pose, let's see what I came up with next is, it's the last pose before he leaves. So again, lots of poses in the middle. Actually, it's not the last pose where he leaves the structure. It's the pose where this foot sticks. Next pose is going to be the last pose before he leaves the structure. Here he goes. Woohoo! Look at him go. Method animate. That's right. This pose here, again, is his foot first comes into contact with the structure. I'll bring this foot. Looks more like a stretch. Next pose is when both feet are in contact. Then there's a lower one there where he slides down a little bit and then starts to climb up. This pose here is where this leg comes up, his back leg. It looks like I can maybe take that up. Next pose is when this foot, I don't know what the hell that foot. I think it's the last pose before this bottom foot comes off. Up, this foot makes contact. Put our body on the thing is opposite. That's good. And then he's going to push up. My next pose. Then there's going to be a leg kick there. And the feet come down. He's extended. And then curl in. This is the pose right before his fingers or his hands leave the obstacle. Backflip. I'm calling this the contact pose for the feet. So he is still above structure a little bit. Bring those feet down. My contact or my lowest pose. Oops. Actually, I think there's a lower one. Nope, that's my lowest pose right there. And then I haven't finished up yet. I'm going to come up. I'll put a pose there. That foot's off the ground. And then I'll do a pose where this foot touches the ground. There. 189. And then my lowest pose, 193. There's still poses left. That's how I'm blocking that stuff out. And so that's what I'm looking at, like for guideposts or benchmarks, or I don't know. And so those are some of the things I'm looking at. And the great thing about this is, once I've designated my poses, I don't really care about the movement. I mean, I'm thinking about it. How are things going to move? but I'm just really thinking about how these poses are going to work together. Or sorry, I'm not even thinking of that. It's a lie. I'm just thinking about how you like all the ingredients of this. How do I make this pose? Like I need, he looks like he's really struggling here. How do I get the same sense of effort from this character here? That kind of idea. I want him to feel like he's weight on it. Once I get all my poses set up, then I'll go back in and I'll spline them and I'll start to in between them. And then I'm going to tweak them because I'm going to have to tweak them because it's not a lot of character. So anyways, my stepped animation, blocked animation. I may need to put some holds in there. This thing might get longer. But so far, so good. Now, at this point, I got quite a few keys, and because it's body mechanic exercise, I typically set more. Frank Sanchez asks, how do you define the quantity of frames between each pose? Oh, how many frames between each pose? Well, I don't really care about that so much. I just let my reference dictate that to me. So I think, is that what you mean by quantity of frames before each pose? Is how long, how many frames between each pose? Victor, if any of you think you suck at animating, just know we all suck at doing things in the beginning. I used to be bad at sex. Now I have 3 kids. Yeah, I did say that. Way to throw that back in my face. But actually, I have 4 kids. So I'm even better than I thought I was. The problem when you process thoughts verbally like I do is that you say all kinds of stuff. Some good, some bad. Okay, so back to Frank. So Frank, I'm just looking at like, I don't know. I don't know the distance between my frames. I'm like driving in the dark kind of. And so I need to find some things that are going to guide me. So if I start here, this foot is not going to move once it's that's my contact pose. So my next pose is my lowest pose. I know that this foot, well, it does move forward a little bit, but I know that this foot is now planted, and so that's going to dictate to me what this looks like. And it's also my lowest pose, right? My character's at its lowest point in this run. And so then my next pose is going to be this contact pose here. I know this foot's going to be locked down. It's not going to move. So this foot, once it plants on the ground, that foot is very important to me. I want to lock it down. I want to make sure it doesn't. Then we go to this pose. Now at this point, this foot's going to be locked. So I know that I need to get this contact pose blocked out because it's going to tell me where this foot is, which is going to tell me on my next pose where my COG is, this thing, where this thing's going to be. My COG is intensely important because where it goes, everything else follows. So I need to know where this is going to be in space. So the best, most animators aren't quad. There's no way I said that. There's no way I said that. Yeah, that sounds like. So now I know that where this foot is going to be planted, I know that where he's not really reaching as far as I'd like him to reach. Like really, it might have this thing like here somewhere. So, so he'd see how far he's reaching here. My guy's not reaching as far. So, I mean, I can go back and change that. But I'm just going to leave it like that for now. Well, I think, honestly, Sarah, I think most animators aren't quadrupeds is a legitimate, like, I think it would be pretty hard to dispute that. Yeah, I'm using IK arms throughout. That's a good point. Um, hey, Rizwanimation. Rizwanimation. Um, it's good to see you again. I do use IK arms a lot. What I like about, if I just have a character running through space, no, I'll use FK arms for sure. But if I have a character that's gonna be planting and grabbing and all that kind of stuff, I'll just use IK arms throughout. And I like IK arms because when you have FK arms, you have so many parts of the body, so many parts of your rig are controlling where that arm is. So your COG controls it, and then your chest controls it, clavicle controls it, all controls where the wrist is, which is important where that wrist is in space, because that's going to catch our eye. So if we want to adjust where the wrist is, then we got to start at the COG and work up all the way through the shoulder, elbow, wrist. So I used to use Lightwave. We made Garfield with talking animals. Anyway, so with IK arms, the wrist goes where I tell it to go. It doesn't interpolate oftentimes with broad movements. You know, if you got somebody running, FK is obviously better because simpler motion. Whenever I'm going to be reaching, pointing in space, I'm an IK guy, and I wasn't always. Yeah, IK and FK. So that's a good question, Brendan. So there's two types of bone chains in bone chain systems, I guess. There's IK and FK. IK stands for, well, let's start with FK. FK stands for forward kinematics, which means that the motion originates at the root and moves forward. So if I was to set up an FK arm here, my right arm, that's my right arm. Okay, so you'll notice that the root is here, clavicle. When I move that, well, the root's actually here. So when I move that, everything forward, which is up the spine and out to the arm, everything forward of that moves. Yeah? And if I keep going up and up, everything forward moves. Get to the shoulder, everything forward. Nothing behind the shoulder moves. Everything forward of the shoulder. Get to the elbow, everything forward of the elbow moves. Nothing behind it moves. Yeah? That's FK or IK stands for inverse kinematics. What we have here. So inverse kinematics means that it moves, the motion begins inverse, which is at the end of the bone chain. Here we could do this. So we don't have anything that, if I rotate the COG, sticks. Now, obviously, that's very, very helpful in keeping things stuck. Like, for example, feet currently are IK feet, which means inverse, which means that the motion begins here. So what that means is that if I push the body down, the feet are going to stick to the. Very, very important. Now, if this character was swinging and the legs were hanging down below him, then we would probably want to go with an FK leg, where you'd have forward kinematic. Means that everything forward of the COG moves, but nothing behind. Does that make sense? How was that explanation? Basically, IK means it sticks. FK means rotates. And you can't rotate an IK. I mean, you can rotate locally. You can't rotate, globally. So IK is translation. Hey, got 10 out of 10. Okay, so I'm using IK because he's planting his hands on the thing, right? So now, where was I? So let's just say for sake of argument that I was all finished my initial blocking. Now there's There's other areas. Remember when I said like there's got to be more, I'm going to need more information between these two. So let's say I'm now going to start doing a few breakdown posts. On frame 196, how did you get the key to have only the top of the bar to be red and others are full red on all? And one, is that 70? Oh, here? Must have been something that what happens there sometimes is like if I'm in here and I go and I select any of these channels, it's only going to move well, it's only going to key in that channel. So even if I go in here and go, oh, it is going to key. Mostly just going to key. Oh, I know what it is. If I hit S, because I have that selected, it's only going to key to Y. That's how. That's kind of relatively new to mine. It's kind of annoying, but I at this stage I don't want to just key part of my animation or part of my rig. I want to key all of it. Yeah. Okay, so let's find this in between these two poses. So I'll go. I gotta sort that out before I get too into it. And you know, it's not unusual. In fact, it's very usual that when I'm animating shot like this, I don't necessarily clean it up or in between it or any of that kind of stuff from the beginning. I'll go in and I'll sort of like there'll be parts of my animation that are spline and are more cleaned up, and there'll be parts that are still in steps. I just need to yes, to save on full keyframes. Well, I use auto key as well, but yes, I do occasionally hit S just to make sure I'm hitting all the keyframes. Auto key, it's a new auto key set. You know, there'll be parts of my animation that I'm not quite sure about, kind of concerning to me, and so for a while, and I know that I know that I need to have a certain level of enthusiasm uh, for my animation, and I know that I need to overall I just need to enjoy the process. Um, yes, got to make sure all channels are key. I'm not going to, I'm going to burn out or any of that kind of stuff. So I'll go to, sometimes when I'm a little bit confused or I'm starting to feel a little bit, I'll go to an area where I'm like, well, this is kind of fun. I know what to do here. This is an easy part of my animation. And then I'll worry about the more difficult part. I'll kind of bounce around some. So let's just between these two because they're too broad for me to spline yet. I'm going to go somewhere in the middle. That looks close. And I'm going to open my graph editor. And with everything selected, I'm going to select these two keys. And I'm going to spline, or I'm going to do a linear line. And that's my in-between there. And that's what my dude looks like. But I'm letting Maya find me the halfway point. Now key it. Except in my preferences. And now I can go back. And now I'll work on this pose a little bit. So let's look at the rotation. That looks pretty good. X, I'd like them to be maybe favoring this way a bit. Let's get, I'm not too sure what I want to do with the spine yet, and I'll clean that up when I spline it. But for now, I'll just keep them this. Throw this hand back. I'm also thinking about what I'm going to do for overlap. Let's get, because he just pushed off this structure, I'm going to go with the hands more so than I see here because I want to. Oh, this and the two. Start with getting that off. Not worried about the fingers quite yet. That time will come. Oh, and reaching, or it's going to end up touching there. So we want it to lead, and so oh, it's translation. We've already done an in between. But if we go in, well, there's a couple things we can do. I like to think about, you know, if I go in and I just move this towards there, that's probably fine. He's too low. Yeah, he might be. I've got a fix for that as well. That might be okay, but I'm gonna see if I can't let Maya help me with that. So sometimes what I'll do is on that foot, I will delete this just with the foot select, and then I will do a linear spline. Bring that foot. So now it's an in between that's favoring the position that it's in there. See that? Pull that back. And this foot it is too low. So now I'll just shift select all of my IK parts. And I'll make sure I'm in world mode for my manipulator. I want to pull this foot up a little. Still too low because his head's not really coming down enough. Sometimes, not even sometimes, oftentimes what I'll do when I'm setting my scene is I'll select these 5 controllers out of my A controllers, and I'll go up to create sets, quick selection set, and I'll just call it IK, add it to sheet. And I can always just grab them and make these move one and the other than the other. All right. And there I have, there I need. Now I have a bunch of different, I like to look at my animation in terms of like, instead of 200 frames of animation, I like to look at it as in like multiple. Because it's just less stressful. So, for example, I could look at this and say, there's running up to, so there's these first like 11 frames running up to the putting my hands on the strap. And that way I can just bring in my timeline and I don't have to worry about, like, a mistake I used to make as a fledgling animator is selecting everything and finding it and then hitting play and seeing all this weird stuff happen and not knowing like how to fix it, because now Maya is doing this really weird in between. I don't like it. And so that was always I always, you know, I'd always get really 1,000 things to do now. I don't do that anymore. I've learned my lesson. I've paid my dues. So instead, what I do is I just find a section, whatever, like I just did here with the, whatever, this thing. That's a section. There's also a section here. Where is it? Right. Backflip section. That's a whole other assignment. There's clearly some poses missing. So that's a whole other assignment. And I don't like to think about all that kind of stuff because it stresses me out. I'm prone to stress. I'm a, you know, middle-aged dude. If I get too much stress, well, I could have a heart attack, and that would be bad. So I don't want that. So anyway, let's just zoom in. And this is quite comforting. I'll be like at work and I'll come in the morning and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to animate 11 frames. And if I finish those 11 frames, I'll animate the next 11. And it comforts me. So I'll go in here and I'll just spline it. Go into my preferences, animation, and set that to auto. And work on post trim. Starting with the COG. And what I love about these characters, select this main, what do they call it? Character node. Now, the COG. And help me see it a little bit better, I'm going to throw a motion trailer. Oh, that looks pretty good. What's wrong with that? Come down. Pretty great. I don't know, it looks a little skippy. It looks too low and push off it. Everything's default. Yes, I don't use any plugins. A lot of people talk about the A tools, and I think they're wonderful, but for what I'm doing here, I don't really bother with them too. Only because not everybody has them, and that's a whole other lesson. So I mean, I'm super like, I fix my car with a fork. I'm one of those guys. That's not a lie, by the way. So now I want to see about just this movement here is a little bit floaty. So let's get him down on the ground. So I'm just going to go 2 frames in, and I'm going to take this foot position here on frame 5. I'm going to copy that back to frame. Get that foot down on the ground. And then I'd like to get this, see about getting this front foot, its position early. Goofy. I did. I said fork. I was out working on my car one day, and my neighbor came out and said, "Are you using a fork?" And I said, "Well, there was no." I kind of feel like after this contact, like this pose, feel like so select the COG into the translation. I kind of feel like move just the translation Y over. Sort of feel like here we should go low again. That second bounce. I like it. Fast. I didn't like no bounce back. That's a key. That would be, well, I'll leave it there for now because his head kind of, if I look at his head, it's something that fast. It actually gonna put it back to where. Okay, put it a little bit lower. So that feels pretty good. I don't mind that. I'd like to now open my outline. I'm going to delete that motion trail and throw a motion trail on the foot. That looks like raise that a bit more. Fine, fine. Pick up this foot. Yep. Right through. Now, try to get hide the what happened. I'm just spitballing. Reset my tool. Might be a little too goofy, but I'll try it. Play blast a lot, so I like that. Bring the head back. Make sure it's not too crazy. Let's get rid of that motion trail because they're heavy. Tend to overlap a lot. Can be. I want to make sure my evaluation mode's in parallel so it plays as fast as. If I want to play faster, I think I can go in here and into my show menu and turn off image play. There we go. That plays. Just trying to get a little bit of overlap in there. Raise them up a little bit. Drop. Oh, close pretty well. What's wrong with that? Well, you could argue. Now I'll get this foot push off a bit better. So I'm going to copy 8 over 9 with that foot selected and raise the heel. 10. So, oh, hands. This guy can't go anywhere without me. Now we can do one at a time. Take a look at it. Too bad. Close this. Close being weird. It was good. My elbow. Every once in a while, I'll go in if I'm animating this stuff. I'll go to curves and I'll just hit the Euler filter to make sure my stations aren't wacky. The lack of sleep has made me very. Hold on here. There's a conversation happening. I got two. They forked. That's why I listen to Mark when I animate. Forked his car. Sorry, no, sorry. What are you animating, Victor? A Woody rig from Toy Story. Oh, nice. I'm doing an elephant walk. Too hard. That's a difficult task. Hard task. Pretty punny, Sarah. Is there any risk of the Euler filter changing your animation in unwanted ways? Slight risks, yes. Slight. But I only use it if I notice something's funky. Like this elbow being up here is kind of weird. So I'll try it. At this stage of the game where I'm just blocked out, I'm not really that concerned about it. But yeah, it can make a mess. But not often. Again, not worried too much about the hand or about the fingers, sorry. Want to get now the big thing too that I actually didn't touch on that I should have was I want to make sure that my spacing on my COG in my translation Z is good. D. And I can see that it's not. So if I look here, a little funky between these two, slowing down like that. I'd rather just the reason for that is kind of a tough one because you might look at it and go like, well, when somebody's running, they're kind of slowing down as they hit. There's subtle little changes. Their translation Z, of course, the translation Z being the horizontal translation. So, but I find if I'm adding detail in a run, which is translation, it's potentially going to add little funky spacing issues. Remember spacing with when we talk about spacing, and I'll use, I always do, bouncing ball as an example. So when we have a ball bounce, we have a ball at the top of its arc as it's starting to fall. Spacing's really close together, but it's getting progressively further apart. All the way to the ground. And that is what's known as acceleration. Greater object heating up. Now, if we threw a frame in here, obviously there'd be a little bit of jitter as it's falling. It would be natural, just a little slow. Victor, be careful what you wish for. So I want to keep that as smooth as possible, which is why I just get rid of the keys in the middle. Translation Y, of course, is vertical translation. That's gonna have more detail. I want to just keep that translation that, or sorry, constant. On my character, so there's something that acts on my character to make a change. Okay. Next arm. Hand. Elbows, huh? Fix this. Oh, I bet I'm having a problem with. I wonder if this is because I'm on parallel. Hang on. Sometimes if your evaluation was on parallel, it'll give you some weird. Doesn't. That. Now, visualize motion trail. Left arm now. That looks pretty good. Here. Coming up. And then it's hitting at the same time. So I'm just going to move it back a frame. Stretches forward a little further and earlier than the other by a frame. Okay. Back to parallel mode. Just because now here's challenging. What? 7? 11, 17. See how it's kind of gliding off because that's what's happening with our spacing. So we need to adjust that space on this. Not concerned about the arms or the legs. In fact, rid of them. They'll just be distracted. This way I can just see he cushions slower as he comes up. Right in there, everything slowed down. We don't want it to slow down because he just pushed off. So let's go into the translation Z. Right there. Slow down. All of these. Get about it. Hang on. Little bit more careful. Just a little. Okay. Now, here. Kind of want that to. Click that key on the translation. Here where it's falling a little too gently, so we'll have to adjust that as we make it. Just like with the bouncing ball. Mm-hmm. How it looks. Just then here I'll do the same as I did back there, as I'll break this. So we just feel a bit of an abruptness. Push off. I like that. And then this foot, we gotta feel this foot pushing off. So as it comes up here, that raised toe down. this foot. Red foot as well. More. So having that little bit of that overlap with the head really helps as well right here. Push. Wonder about dipping it down. I've seen a lot of videos and interviews in the great Mark Pullyblank, and I would be honored to even have one class session with you as my teacher. Well, here we are. It's very nice of you to say, Victor. Thank you. Okay. Feels pretty good. Good start. A little bit of a spacing issue right here with this foot. Watch as it's coming across. Goes down right in there slightly. Again. Kind of bobbles up a little. Take a look. Now, here's one of the tricks with the foot rotations. They're always a bit tricky. Oh, first, let's see. Uh-oh. You guys go. Oh, my microphone's gone. Everything's gone. Try that again. I'm back. Look what happened to my. What? Got all crazy looking. Probably save it. I'm going to save the scene as not benzene. We're going to put it here under CG spectrum. We're going to put under new lessons. We're going to put it under post transitions. Nope, not post transitions. Come on, you guys. Stop being so crazy. Parkour. There it is. Block. Fine. Just in case. Hi, Mark. I'm aware there are plenty of previous houses in LA, but when it comes to the polished animation of the audience see on TV and movies, where does the majority of that polish take place? In Maya. Sorry. It depends. So there's a lot of VFX houses all over the place. A lot of them in Vancouver. There's a lot of them in LA. There's a lot of them in. There's some in Australia. So if we're talking about and I think what you're talking about, JD, if I can call you JD, I think what you're talking about is visual effects house. And so how a lot of that stuff works, visual effects, get these big movies, that you're like Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel. And the bulk of that work, so it gets prevised in some of these studios in LA. There's like third floor. There's James Cameron has one called Anyway, they block everything out in the previs, and then it gets approved, and then it gets sent to one of these other visual effects houses. So it gets sent to the big ones for ILMs and Retas. Then they farm it out. They'll take certain sequences. They'll farm those sequences out. Different. Smaller. Oh, is it? My mic not working? Judo chop chop. Still not working? Try that again. How's that? Better? Somebody tell me if they can hear me? Here? There? Hello? Hello? It looks like it's working. You guys hear me? Yeah, somebody give me a... Can't hear me. Can you not hear me? Oh, no. Oh, thank God. There must be a delay. I think it's fine. No, it's cutting, but with delay. Working well. Kind of all over the map. In and out. And out again? What did this? How's that? Better? Look at this. Need to move it close. Judo check, check. Judo chop, chop. Yeah. Here's. And 1 second, I'm going to try something. Better, better, better. Oh, what about that? Is that better? Can you guys hear me now? Choppy internet. Gotcha. Okay. Well, so anyways, a lot of these big houses, they'll get the bulk of the work, and then they'll shop out some sequences to smaller visual effects houses. And that will, and they'll just do, parts of it. So when I worked in Vancouver, I worked for some smaller visual effects houses, and we would get sequences. Now my mic was fine, and now it's not fine. Here we go. This is gonna be that better. How's that? Hey, Danny Morales, what are you doing here? All right. Sean, it's good to see you too. Wow, everybody's here. So wait, am I answering the question? Oh, so that's where a lot of that polish work goes, to answer your question. It kind of goes all over the place, with the bulk of it going to one of the big houses, and then different different sequences going other. Woo! All right. Where were we? Oh. Now, the one thing I'd like to do is, this all feels pretty even so far going over the obstacle here. So I want to get more of a kick from the feet. I don't have the hands on yet, so that's going to change things as well. But I want to get these. I like to feel a little bit of kick with the feet, just to break up the timing a little bit. What is called a texture and timing. Yeah. So I'll end up putting a lot of keys on the feet. That's okay. The feet. I'm gonna throw a trail on there. I want to feel just a bit of a pop. I want to delay that foot back somewhat, so then it can quickly catch up. So it just has a different timing than the other foot. So it has a bit of snap to it. Why would I animate without the arms? Because the arms are going to distract me, right? So I'm just trying to get. I first start off by animating without the legs as well, and even without the heads. And in fact, sometimes I'll do this. So now I just see my COG. So now I just see how this thing's moving. That can be very, very helpful. Hey, Kirsty, how are you? Um, the arms and everything else will kind of distract me a little bit, but this way I can see exactly what's going on with my COG. And because where my COG goes, everything follows. It's incredibly important to have my COG doing exactly what I want it to do. So I'll hide everything, keep my COG on screen, throw a motion trail on it, and I'm just trying to get everything I can to make this thing work for me. And just by tweaking curves a bit, I'm gonna get this one. See, I got a bit of a slow out here on my translation Y, this thing. So I'm going to break this curve. Means I might not need that one. That's because the hands are on there. I want to get two-part kick. And I'll go to my translation Z right here. I got nothing. The timing feels pretty even with that, but I'm good with that because I can break that timing up. Like I said earlier, I can break that up a little bit with the rest of the character. So let's see. Let's bring the legs back. See how that's working. See this leg, the last leg to push off. I feel it's coming up too soon. Almost feels like he's being pulled instead of pushing. Keep that leg down. Got a nice push off. You've built 2 characters in Lightwave. Awesome. Good for you. Let's try. We're going to bring all the rest of this stuff back. Can I get some advice? I'm trying to make a right scene. Too complex. Oh, yeah. So JD, I added some stretch. I didn't really add stretch. What I do is, and that's a good point. What I do, no, you didn't miss it. What I do is on my legs, I go over here to the channel box, and it has a auto stretch on it. And for stuff like this, well, for almost everything, I auto stretch on. If I don't, it just separates from my foot. I like to stretch myself. I leave it on, especially for doing broad stuff like that. Everybody's different. Every production's a bit different, so it all depends on what you're up to. Okay. Next. Good. Rizwanimation, putting bones in the characters. That's the name of the game. Let me see. Where are we here? Somebody else had a question about, Rendani 9D. You're working with 9Ds? Holy smokes, you're drunk with power. You're trying to make a scene, but it's too complex. I'm not really sure how I can advise you on that. I would say make it less complex. That's always that's always what I say. Yeah, auto stretch is your friend for sure, or not. I mean, I hope auto stretch isn't your only friend. That would mean you have to get out more. But it can be one of your friends. You know, it's not going to drive you home, but whatever. So now the hands. Oh, the hands. Now here's the trick with the hand. We rotate them as I go through. Of course, the fingers are going to crash. So we end up needing kind of a lot of frames on. You can see I have auto stretch on the arms as well. That's my last pose before we let go. So this 10 to 17 is going to take some work, but let's start from 17 forward. So you can see my character is up higher now because I've tweaked the COG. And so that's made life a little difficult for my hands. That's okay. We will compromise. Just stretching the hell out of those things. Looks a little funky, but now where do they end up? Back here. It's weird. It looks like there's weird. See that weird rotation right? I don't like it. I'm going to hit the Euler filter. Oh. Throw another pose in here with these fingers pushing off. Yes. Again, I'm not doing the fingers yet. Don't care. All in due time. Those are very, very long. Like it. But you might not, or your director might not, your mom might. It doesn't. Yeah, my wrist is going all crazy through. It's gotta be. I can see it here. So knowing that you're into gimbal lock, or figuring out that you're into gimbal lock, usually you can tell by looking at some of these big changes of value graph editor. So you see with this, I'm going from negative 85 to 55. So there's an issue there because I really just want the rotation of this hand to kind of stay there. So see that gimbal lock. Gimbal lock. throw one of those motion traits. Okay, this actually is quite helpful. 17, 19, 22. 22. Look at that wrist. Oh my God. That's not. Can't do that. Who can do that? It's not proper wrist pose. Okay, bringing that hand back. And then we get up here. Add an extra bone to get around nimble lock. I know you meant give. But yeah, let's throw another bone in there. But you know, some other time. It's flipping. Try it again. Weather filter. Sometimes I'll just go in here, grab my rotations, zero them out. This one. This thing. Come on, gimbal lock. You're embarrassing me in front of all my friends. It's better than that elbow. Is video game animation different than movie animation? Yes. It is different. How it's different? Well, a couple reasons or a couple ways. One is that it has to be some typically run through a game engine after you animate it. So it runs a bit differently. It's not typically as smooth, although that's changing. A lot of it's motion capture, and a lot of it's like motion capture cycles and things like that. The rigs, because of the limitations of real time rendering, the detail isn't as good. Well, it's not as detailed. So you lose a lot because it's not real time rendering. So like things like cloth and hair and lots of things that add to overlapping action hair. And there isn't always the same level care given to video game animation. It is, in my experience. For film animation, where not real time rendering, you can spend a lot of time tweaking to make it look beautiful because it's um, it's because it's going to be rendered, so you can get as much detail as your computer can handle. Right. Not sure I like the way this hand is out like there. I don't like it. Just keep it up. I'm going to change this. No. Sometimes it's just a. I can only hear you from one side. Can you fix the line of your headphone? Um. Oh yeah, I see that too. Sure why that is. Uh, Everything seems to be working in stereo. Right channel is missing. It's too bad it wasn't the wrong channel. Uh, um, hmm. I see that only one is working. I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe it's always been that way. Left, right. Now that's only the left one. Huh. Oh, what about that? There we go. I did it. I did it. Guys, I fixed it my own self. Thanks for letting me know. I'm just simplifying that and coming through. Follows a path of action. Yeah, I just fixed it. We got, what do we got left? We got about 10 minutes left. next time. So it must have been Sarah. You're here. You've been to all of mine. It's always been just phone. Right. Speaker. God, I've been underselling all of you all this time. Anyway, next, gotta kick this hand. The hands are like, I mean, I'm telling you, man, they're no fun. Throw I really, really, really love these motion trails. I don't know how I ever lived without them. All those years I worked as an auto mechanic. I'm first just looking, I know my rotations are a little funky. Just first looking at path of action. Just going to concentrate on. Get a pretty broad. Then I can go in and I like the path of action. Right. Oh, let's shut off the turn on curves. In and out again. No, it isn't. Stop it, Sarah. And so right now, I've just been working basically straight ahead. I blocked it all out first, and then I've just been kind of going straight ahead, and that's cool. And I might get to this point and go, ah. I think for something like this that is progressive like it is, but it might be a good idea not to deviate from this, only because there aren't any holds. Well, I guess there are holds. I guess you could say once he lands, you could add a almost looks like a speed. This is kind of interesting. So comes down here, goes. Want to actually once he gets to this, I would like to hold. So everything select. Uh, First, get him down there. Drag all. What would look like if we did. I like the speed that has. I like that a lot. We are missing that. I don't like this post. Kind of needs to. These up. Then I want to have a bit of a hold here. So I'm going to take frame 40. And drag it over. 52. E 50. Drag that back to frame 40. So I keyed a pose that favored that pose. It's still a little too stiff. Delete frame 40. I'll go to 5. That frame. A little bit of a hold. So now I've messed around. Parkour. So I've messed around with the timing a little bit, but I haven't extended my scene. I just used frames that I had in there. I'm just speeding certain things up so I can add. Gives me a little moment to pause, which. And see, because I took my time on my blocking, poses are actually working pretty well together. Lots of work and cleanup to be done. See, pretty quickly, like I've been at this while talking all. Sarah, I'm gonna have to head off. Creative project lecture. Okay, that's cool. Not much sound. Still, huh? Shows everything's shows must be the it's seems to be all the things are really sorry, you guys. Stereo. Well, it's not stereo sound anymore. It's I switched it to mono. Balance both in the. Hey Sarah, thank you for popping in. Well, huh? Does anybody have any other than how do I you hear me better? Does anybody have any questions so far? Animation wise? No, definitely gonna need slow. See you in class, Sarah. Thank you. So this jump is another example, likely example. All right, Victor. In your dreams. Oh, little isolation. Right here, he's jumping across. Again, I want to just check out my translation, Z and Y, because that's pushing off here. Nice, solid push off. This relation. So I select this tangent, break it. Just select this handle, linear. This one. This one. I'm going to delete. Select this one here, which is where he's coming in and making contact. I'm going to break this one. Select the tangent handle. Get linear. Speed it. Still a little floaty in there. Likely going to need some. Also jumps. Also take this frame here. 6 frames over. That's too much. Move that over 2 frames. One. Got all this time in here that I can take these 3 frames. 1 flops down low. That's better. Bit of a pull. I feel like he's being pulled down. Take a look at that. COG. Only gonna need Do a little straight down. Break this one. Again, I don't care about the legs so much. Better. And it's even easier to see this again if we go into ability chat. Now I can just at. Oh, look at that. It's time for me to go. Well, thanks everyone. Sorry about my audio problems. I'll see what I can do to sort that out. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully this was helpful. I hope to see you again next week. Same time. It's Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I will be here. And hopefully you'll be able to hear me. Appreciate all of you guys showing up. Means a lot. All right. Have a wonderful week and weekend, and we'll hopefully see you next week. Later.